Hey, welcome back. We have a very exciting knife here. This one either takes the record or ties for the most expensive knife I've ever purchased. I can't remember exactly what the other one was, but it was very close to this. So in the north of $3,000 range. This knife has a table price of $3,000, but I think only 4 were made like it. And just make sure nothing else is in here. Very well packaged. Good job, seller. Appreciate that for sure. See what it's going to take to get in here. Whoa, sorry. Yeah, I don't buy knives like this very often, and I especially have not bought them very often lately. So this is a pretty special one here. Let's see if we can find our way in eventually. It is extremely well packaged. Now, if you do this like really good packaging in the wrong way, you can actually put the knife at risk because you make it so hard for the buyer to get to that, you know, they have a chance of potentially damaging the knife. So you always got to be a little careful, I feel like, having bought and sold a lot of knives. There is a kind of a, I don't know what's the right term, a breaking point where you don't want to go past it in terms of like overdoing it. Took a nice little chunk out of the board there. This one is definitely, I'd say, close to the breaking point, if not over. All right, so package 2, or I don't know what we want to call that. We've got 2 bags so far. One with the label, one apparently made to float this if it ever lands in an ocean. Now we got a box. It's funny, it's an old Chris Reeves knives box. All right. What do we have? Let's see. Or at least I think it's a Chris Reeves knives box. I guess it could be a sticker on some other box. At this point, this video is more about whether or not I can get into the knife without destroying it than it is about the knife itself, I feel like. There we go. All right. Oh my goodness. We're almost 3 minutes in and still no knife. There it is. All right, I'll worry about getting this patch off here later. Thank you for the great packaging, seller. That's always important. And let's get into it. Let's get right to it on this one and not talk about it too much. Cool. Little pivot hardware remover. And there it is. This is the Gareth Bull Knives Xyro. I think it might be a mini Xyro. Holy. Oh, that is really sweet. Ah, the rollout's amazing. Ah, and then what everyone wonders, ah, that is really good. But the rollout might be the sweetest part of this knife. Oh my gosh, it's so thin behind the edge. So they are coming out with a production version of this. That should be pretty spectacular. But there is nothing like a custom from Bull Knives. Xyro play. Oh, that is... So shams are really nice, and I think maybe I like the frame lock sham action slightly more. Gosh, it's hard to say. I've never had the chance to own one of these in a, you know, basically, so this one checks 3 boxes. I've never gotten to own a Gareth Bull Knives that was a liner lock instead of a frame lock. I've never owned a Xyro. This thing looks brand new. Not a snail on it. And I've never gotten to feel a Gareth Bull knife with a thumb hole, which a lot of people even customize a thumb hole into their shams just to have that opportunity. Perfect jimping. I mean, beautiful blade, beautiful finish. I would like say I'd probably like a touch more. Gosh, I don't know. It works perfectly like all shams. They're so good at doing front flippers. I'd probably like a touch more room here if they just cut the scale back a little bit. I think that'd be kind of nice. I mean, there's no real reason to have it sticking out this far anyways. In fact, if you didn't, you could have put a finger choil there. That'd be pretty nice, but oh man. Let's see if there's any forward back blade play or potential for closing in on myself. 0. Man, that is sweet. Now this tool is really cool too. So it has a, you know, a very custom pivot. And this can fit in here. Be extremely careful and tighten and loosen it there. Oh man, that is something else. And it just has a beautiful hollow grind on it. It's also my first, gosh, I guess this is like a 4-way. It's my first Gareth Bull knives that has a Dama blade too. So they got like a Damasteel blade, it looks like here. I don't know the exact pattern, but I could go look up the stats on it. I do feel like, I don't know why they didn't have a little more room here for the front flipper. I know that's not like the main goal of this particular one, is, you know, more of the finger flick and the reverse flick, but this particular one being this model's more focused on that, I guess, than the front flip, but they do just such a good front flip. Now, when you get the purchase, it's amazing. Like, it's really spectacular on the action, but I find it a little harder to get the purchase than on a sham. But the detent, the brake, all that is really spectacular. You can see the lockup is spectacular. The centering seems to be perfect on this. See if I can zoom in on that. It's so thin, you can barely see it. Might be a touch off, but if it is, it's very hard to tell. Oh, that is sweet. So this has like a marbled carbon fiber scale on it. That is really something to behold. What a beauty of a knife. That really is spectacular. Man, sometimes knives just speak for themselves. It's got a nice little backspacer. I don't know what that's made out of. Maybe titanium. It looks like it's maybe the same, a little different color than the pocket clip, but I think it's titanium. They do make a full-size version of this, which, although it probably wouldn't be as nice in the pocket, this thing feels like it would be just amazing in the pocket. Wow, yeah. Just that smooth scale goes over the pocket so easily and stuff. It would be like a little more of a handful. So kind of like on the 3-inch sham versus the 3.3. But man, that reverse flick is, the reverse flick is very easy to find. I find myself choking up a little bit to do the thumb flick. The rollout's so smooth that you don't really need to get a good thumb position. You can kind of do it like casually, which is nice. But yeah, that's definitely one of the nicest knives I've handled. Would like to see that in a full size, just to give some size comparisons. Maybe I'll just do some measurements and stuff first. So you got a 3-inch blade with a 6.8, I'd say, overall length. Do a quick weigh in here. Then we'll do some quick size comparisons on this. All right, 2.835. Wow, that is really light. So lighter than an Oz Roosevelt. For size comparison. Very similar in size to an Oz Roosevelt. It's definitely the the similar category. Very different knife, but similar in size. Definitely smaller than a SPK Lamia. Spyderco Para 3. Pretty similar in the handle, but not quite. A different efficiency, more cutting edge. Interesting. Pretty similar in size, really. Let's go real budget here with the CGRB Pyrite. Very similar in size, but a little smaller than the CGRB Pyrite, which I believe is a 7-inch overall length. And I think a good comparison will be this full-size bug out here. And I happen to be carrying a mini bug out, which also is a pretty good size comparison. A little more blade than the mini bug out, but a similar size handle. So some good comparisons there. What else? For you high-end knife people, definitely much smaller than a full-size McGinnis spoke. Here's a Demco 80 20.5, which has become one of the most prevalent knives out there. So that's a good size comparison. And actually kind of oddly similar in size to the Wee Banter in some ways, but it's definitely a little bigger, or longer at least. And a Brown Knives Mini FSD-I. So they are coming out with a production version of this. And let's throw out a VC Edge interface, which is much, much bigger than this, but actually lighter than it. So hopefully that all puts it in some perspective for you. They are bringing out a production version of this, which many, many people are very excited about. I think it was $450. I actually did order one. I am tempted now to keep this until that gets here so I can do a really nice direct one-to-one comparison. It's made by Riot, so this is definitely going to feel nicer and, you know, be a level up. But at the same time, it's always a question, how close can they get? And that could be a really interesting video for a comparison. So, wow, that is quite a sweet knife. Sorry the lighting isn't just a little better in here. I feel like I'm not doing this handle much justice, but it's kind of hard. It's very reflective. It's kind of hard to get a really good look on it, but yeah, that's a sweet one. I hope you enjoyed this one as much as I did. That was a pretty fun one to check out. It's not been on my bucket list, and again, from a Gareth Bull Knives perspective, it checked the box of me finally getting to check out a liner lock. I like this liner lock a lot more than a McGinnis liner lock. I have not pinched myself once. I don't know how, like what makes a liner lock pinch yourself versus not, but this one I do not pinch myself. This one, you know what, this McGinnis wasn't that bad. Like a Hansen, I was getting pinched quite a bit by. This McGinnis gets me a little bit. I don't know what causes that on some knives versus others, but this one hasn't pinched me once. So really nice liner lock. So check that box. Got to check out a Dama, a Dama Gareth Bull Knives. Got to check out a Xyro, and yeah, got to check out a reverse flick on a Gareth Bull Knives. It's just quite a sweet one. You know, I don't know if this is actually on bearings or washers. I'd have to try and see if I can get a quick glance at that. But it's pretty tight in there. It's going to be hard to see. I think it is on bearings. Looks like we got bearings in there. I think you could also probably see that. Looks like bearings to me. So interesting. Because Bull Knives does some phenomenal washer knives too. But the fact that you can't tell, that's when you get really good custom knives, you can't tell if they're on bearings or washers. That's what I found. Bull Knives you can if you spend enough time around them, but it's not super obvious. Hansen, very hard to tell. The best ones that I've handled are very hard to tell. McGinnis can be hard to tell. Whew, that rollout is Sweet. Nice knife. All right. Yeah, if you enjoyed the content, please feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.